Thanks for attending today. My name is Josh Osborne, and I'm the product manager here at Cadimage over in Auckland, New Zealand. Today we're going to be looking at the Cadimage Electrical Tool. Hopefully that's the webinar you think you're attending. We're going to start off by just quickly looking at what kind of things the tool is supposed to help you with. Then I'll jump through the way the tool works. And then at the end, if you've got any questions about it, you can ask me those at the end. I'll be keeping the questions panel on my screen closed while we're running the thing. So if you want to just enter them as we go, I will come around and answer them all at the end. So just type them in as you think of them if you need to. All right, so hopefully you have maybe a trial version of the tools installed already, and you're wanting to have a look at the electrical tool. So once you've watched this webinar, you'll be able to go away and have a go at it yourself in ArchiCAD. I'm using ArchiCAD 18 at the moment, but the way that it works is almost identical in 17 and 16 as well. So if you're using those older versions, then you won't have much trouble figuring out what to do based on this webinar. All right, so start up ArchiCAD. So the goal of the electrical tool is just to make drawing up your electrical plans much easier and quicker, and to get rid of a lot of the hassle and frustration that there often is in drawing them up, of positioning things properly and getting things lined up and making sure that your wiring is in place and that sort of thing. So there's not a lot of things in the electrical tool that you can't do manually. It's just a case of automating a lot of annoying things and tidying them up and that sort of thing. Should make things much quicker for you to get your electrical plans done. The electrical tool was actually made as part of the first of what we call the Cadimage Think Tank project, which is a group of Cadimage customers, sort of like beta users, beta testers, and we talked to them about what kind of tools they wanted in ArchiCAD, what kind of problems they had in ArchiCAD that they wanted help with, and a lot of them said that they needed help with electrical. It was just very fiddly and annoying, and so over the course of a couple of months, we developed the electrical tool as it is now, to solve that need of having a lot of hassle getting your electrical stuff done in ArchiCAD. So the first thing to do with the electrical tool is we're going to put a switch down. It's probably the first thing you'll come to do when you're doing your electrical plans. So when the electrical tool is installed, you'll add this Cadimage switch. Cadimage switch is the name of the object. This electrical tool to the toolbox here. You can add it wherever you want, obviously, but the Cadimage work environment that we supply puts it here. So we can just double click on that, and you can have a look at the library that we supply, which has a bunch of electrical objects in it. So you've got components, extras, whatever that is, and wall plates. So components is excuse me. Components is parts, switches, symbols, that sort of thing, power points, and jack points. Then we've got wall plates, which are what it sounds like, wall plates, and extras is just a couple of sort of symbol type stuff, which we don't really automate the way that these work, like the distribution board and the fuse board. It's just things that people have asked for over time that they often want to put in with their electrical plans, and so we have those options there. What we're going to do now, though, is put a switch down, or any component really, but a switch is a good example. So I'm going to go with Cadimage switch here. As you can see, there's a bunch of different switch types that you could use here. And once you select your Cadimage switch object, you can choose what type of switch you want to use. At the moment, we're using default switch. And as you can see, the shape is international. if I just turn on the custom settings options, I can show you that we can change to a bunch of different types of switches, and that will change the way that the symbol looks. I'm going to stick with international for now. Circular, and as you can see, we've got a lot of options for the various things that you might want to change about your symbol. So all of the dimensions that you would want there, any text that you want to show on there if you do want to. We've got controls for the pens and lines there. And there's also some specification settings as well. So you can choose if you want it to be 1 or 2 pole, 1 or 2 way. You can set the rating. I'm just going to set this to 10. And any notes that you want to show in the schedule can be set here as well. We've also got positioning options. This one's defaulted to 1.2 meters, but there's a couple of preset heights, or you can just go use custom settings again and just enter one yourself. At the moment it's set to dimension to the middle of the switch, but you can set it to the top or base if you want to. There's our height, and there's a little descriptive text of where it is. And the last thing here is the label, if you want one. We've got some label settings there. At the moment this is set by the model view options, so anything that we change in here, we can't change anything in here because it's being dictated by the model view options, but if we wanted to override those, we can do. And the same for the orientation settings. And these all have pen settings and font settings as well. So you can change pretty much any aspect of the switch you would want to. So now we want to place the switch down, and this is one of the main cool features of the tool, I guess, is that it knows about the walls and things that are in your plan. So if you just click anywhere, it's going to place down a switch like that. But if you come over here near to a wall and place it there, whoops, I wasn't close enough, within a certain distance to a wall, it detects the wall and automatically rotates the switch and sticks it onto that wall. This is one of the things that came up a lot when we were developing the tool, is that people were just tired of having to place their switches and then select them and then rotate them and then move them into the right place again. So this just gets rid of a lot of that initial hassle of getting it placed in the right place in the first place. It may not seem like a big deal, but it's a huge time saver. So we've got our switch placed down now. As you can see, it looks very similar to what we had in those settings there. And the next thing that you want to do once you've got your switch is you want to wire it up to things. So I'm going to select these lights here. And I'll select my switch. And I go to my Cadimage menu and go down to electrical and then just hit the place circuit option. And straight away it places a circuit. Easy as that. So our switch is wired up to these light fittings that I had selected, and this applies to any object at all that you want. If you've got an appliance or some other thing that you want to wire up, you just select that instead. And the electrical tool keeps track of where these things that are wired up actually are. So if I move this light over to here, it redoes the wiring so that stays connected. If I move it back into place, it figures that out as well. So the idea here is just to get rid of having to reposition your wiring. If you're just using lines or something like that, you don't have to mess around dragging those back into place so that your wiring still looks right when you've moved elements. And the same applies to the electrical elements that you have attached to as well. They will take the wiring along with them too. So essentially, you just don't need to worry about it. Once you've got everything wired up, you can ignore it, which is great. if I select the wiring, you can go in and have a look at some of the settings here. Hopefully you can actually see that. I know it's yellow on white by default, so I can see it fine here. Hopefully you can see it there. So similar to the electrical switch options, we've got some more options in here. So I'm just going to turn on the custom settings here so that I can change some things. We're using the default preset at the moment, so that's fine. So at the moment, my path shape is set to zigzag. You can set it to branching, which will change just the way that it connects wired elements to each other. And then we've got some angle and length settings here so that we can specify the way we want our sort of wiring grid to work and the direction we want it to point in. So if you want to change any of those, we've got the link shape. At the moment it's set to a nice smooth line, but if I set that to wiggly, go OK, you can see the change there. I guess it makes it look more hand drawn or something. I think it looks horrible, but if that's what you want, then there's the option there. And obviously when you've got it set to that, you've got controls for a couple of the settings about the way it does that. Got the default light radius as well, so that you can set how far you want the wiring to be away from the thing that it's wired up to. And then we've also got settings for the way that the line type and the line pen look. So there we go. As you can see, when I've got this selected in my floor plan view, we've got a lot of these purple hotspots all over the place. So what we can do is we can click on those and use them to just tweak the shape of that. So if you need your wiring to go around something that's in your floor plan view or something, once you've placed the wiring and had it automatically figure out a path for you, you can then go in and modify it should you need to. And that's all still remembered by the wiring tool. So even though we've changed the shape of it, it still knows enough that it can keep squishing that into the right shape as we move around the elements that are wired up. So the next thing you might want to do, now that you've got a circuit wired up, is you want to add something to it. So what we can do here is select everything again, clicking on the someone is having trouble hearing. I'm just going to keep going ahead with this, and I'll get back to you who can't hear me after the session, and I can get you a recording or something like that. Oh, it's okay now. No problem. Right. Sorry about that. I'll get back to the questions at the end. So I'm just going to keep going ahead here, and I'll look at those later. So now that we want to add something to our circuit, simply select the wiring and delete it. And as soon as you do that, the wiring goes away and it automatically selects all of the things that were wired. And so now we can add to our selection the thing that we want to add. So we want to add this switch in this case. And now I go through and press place circuit again, and it rewires everything up, including the new thing. Now the difference that you may have noticed here is because the electrical tool knows what kind of switches you have and how many of them you have in the circuit, it knows now that this switch needs to be excuse me, needs to be two-way. So you can see before it was a one-way switch. Now that it's in a circuit which involves two switches, it knows that it needs to be two-way, so it's automatically changed itself to do that. Again, it's just to get rid of you having to worry about coming back and doing this stuff. Obviously, you can go in and change it afterwards if you want to, but for convenience sake, it's just done for you as you wire up the circuit, which is just really handy. All right. So that's the wiring. Not really a lot to it. It's just quick and easy and does what you want it to. So the next thing that we want to look at is wall plates. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and let's place down let's just place down another switch. And let's also place a power point, just a single power point. No, not with a key lock. There we go. Single power point, let's place that down there as well. And the power points do the same thing that the switches do. They rotate and stick onto the wall that they're closest to. And now I'll just put down a light here. Let's go get some object. Are there any lamps? That'll do. All right. Now I'll wire up the switch to that object, same way as I did before. And now what I want to do is I want to make a wall plate out of this switch and power point. So to do that, click on my Cadimage menu, Electrical, and go to Plate Selector. And what this will do is it'll open up a palette which shows you all of the plates that make sense with what you currently have selected. So I've got nothing selected at the moment. If I come in here and I select my switch, you'll see that the palette immediately changes to show all of the switches, all of the wall plates that fit the thing I have selected. Since it's just a single switch, it's showing me all of the single switches. And now if I select the switch and the socket, it'll change to show me everything which has a switch and a socket on it. So now I just choose the one I want. Let's go with NZAU, double click on it, and as you can see, it has now changed my symbol here. Looks the same because the elements of it are the same, but it is now a wall plate which has a switch and a power point on it. So if I click on the settings here, you can see it's now using the thing that I double clicked on, NZAU PowerPoint, and we've got a bunch of settings that we can control here as well. So there's a lot of data that you can put in about the switch here, and controls. Goodness, I don't know what just happened just then. Controls for the way that it looks. Some symbol settings here. Switched or not switched, size and text if I want those for the PowerPoint and the switch. The position, again, similar to before. And the label if I want to show a label on there. And if we jump into 3D, goodness, I've forgotten the hotkey for 3D. F4. You can see the switch element that it's placed. It's partially in shade there, so it looks a bit horrible, but you get the idea. So we've got a nice 3D switch there. It's got some hot spots on it, which we can use to toggle it on and off in 3D if we want to. I'm going to leave that how it is. And the switch is fairly detailed in 3D, so if you want to do renders or anything, it will look pretty good in those, and it'll also look great in your sectional elevation views as well. So the idea here is just that once you've actually got everything wired up, it'll still look right in the floor plan, but you can get it to actually represent properly in elevation and 3D views as well. So if you want to show those, you can do. Now if I go into the model view options, you can have a look at some of the controls we have in there. Cadimage Electrical, We've got settings for the amount of detail to show on those 3D plates. At the moment it's set to regular. If you want to do a render which heavily features one of your wall plates or something, you can choose detailed. And if you just want to have a representation in 3D but not be hugely accurate, then simple will do the trick, and off obviously will just not show them at all. We've got settings for the symbol here as well. So now that we've turned our symbols into a plate, all we could see in that floor plan view was the plate symbol. However, you can change back to component symbol here, which will show the components. So it'll look similar to it did before we added the plate. And then you can show both at the same time if you want to as well, the plate projection and the symbol. Sorry, not show both of them at the same time. Show the projection of the plate in 3D, so you can see this here. It projects the 3D shape of the plate into your floor plan view, or you can have just that and no symbol. And you've got a scaling option there as well. And then we have the label settings, which are those settings that we saw earlier in the symbol settings. Orientation to rotate with object or view is just the way that it will look. At the moment, the label is set to rotate with the object, but if you want to rotate with the view because you've got a rotated view, you can set it to that as well, or you can just lock it. All right, so that's pretty much how it works. We can close this palette now. So the last thing I want to look at is just to have a look at some schedules. There's not really a lot to see in schedules. We haven't made a custom scheduler or anything like that because most of you, when we talk to people about it, just wanted to be able to make an electrical schedule using the ArchiCAD interactive schedule tool. So that's what the tool is being designed to do. So we just made everything work with that. So if I go into my schedules here, I can import. When you install the electrical tool, you'll have a couple of electrical schedules installed. So you just look in this folder called Cadimage Tools Extras, and you can see there's a couple of schedules here. So if I come in and just say electrical components schedule, import that, hit OK. You can see it's just a nice, fairly standard ArchiCAD schedule, so you can modify it yourself if you want to, and it just shows us the things that we need to see. They've got a nice image if you want one of those, the symbol view, descriptions, height, color, quantity, that sort of thing, and there's area for the notes as well. If we had added any notes to them, those will show there too. So, and you can use this probably as just a base point from to make the schedule the way you want it to look, or you could just make your own from scratch. It's all just pretty standard stuff. If I go into the scheme settings, you can see the criteria is just to show things that are objects, lamps, or are on the electrical layer, and the fields that are shown are all normal fields, so you don't have to worry about adding any weird stuff or doing any programming or anything like that. It should all just work. So you can just import that one, and as you saw before, there's a couple of those in there. We've got electrical components, schedules and legends, electrical fittings, schedulers and legend, and an overall schedule which shows everything to do with electrical. And that's about it. Nice and quick, nice and easy to use. That's the whole point of the tool. So yeah, go and have a play with the trial version.